Hello and welcome to the Hardison Cochran podcast. I'm your host, Bill Campbell. Today is the first podcast we're doing in a series of podcasts about autism, along with the help of the Autism Society of North Carolina. Now, if you didn't know already, Hardison and Cochran is teamed up with the Autism Society of North Carolina, along with Carolina Athletics, this football season to promote the education and services provided by the Autism Society of North Carolina. And we're doing that by way of in-game advertisement at the football games, print advertisement in the programs of the football games, TV advertisements, radio advertisements, and also internet advertisements. If you want to learn more about our team, you can go to teamautismnc.com. Before we get to today's interview, I want to let you know about the Autism Awareness Game this year. On October 14th, Carolina will take on Virginia. And that game is the Autism Awareness Game. Now, if you go to teamautismnc.com, there'll be a button on there where you can get discounted tickets to that game. With this being the first podcast in the series of podcasts about autism, we figured we would start it out with a definition of autism and also get into what the Autism Society of North Carolina does for families and individuals who are affected by autism. So today we interviewed Aleck Myers, who is the clinical director at the Autism Society of North Carolina, and also David Laxton, who is the communications director at the Autism Society of North Carolina. The best way to start out a podcast about autism is probably just defining it. So how is autism defined by doctors and the medical community?
Well, autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disability that's typically associated with challenges related to social interaction, social communication, and restricted or repetitive behaviors. It's typically seen as a result of a brain disorder and most often first recognized in a pediatric office through a screening. And then later diagnosed. It typically occurs at a very young age, typically occurs by age 3, but it can sometimes not be diagnosed until a bit later in life, but with a backward view that it was probably existing under the age of 3.
Okay, and you said pediatric. Is that the only kind of doctor? What kind of doctors are seeing these things? Is a pediatric notice it, and what kind of doctor are they sent to after a pediatric kind of notices that autism might be something that a child has?
Well, first of all, in terms of diagnosing autism, it's typically done either by a medical doctor or by a licensed psychologist. There are other places that do diagnostics, but ultimately it comes down to a medical doctor or a PhD psychologist. I mentioned pediatric because that's typically the first place a family runs into the problem. So they run for help with their pediatrician. And so that's the first person that might screen it and say, I think you might need to have a diagnosis. You might need to have an evaluation done. And in the state of North Carolina, we actually encourage our pediatricians to do a diagnostic screening at 12 months, at 24 months, and at 36 months on an automatic basis.
Okay, and with autism, there's a spectrum of it, meaning that child A is not going to have the same exact type of effects as child B is, and they both will have autism. Can you explain that, just the spectrum and maybe the lower side of it and maybe the higher side of it as it relates to autism?
Sure. It's definitely a spectrum. There's a saying that a lot of people are using now that if you meet one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. There's a lot of variety, but they're all characterized by similar deficits in the area of social interaction, communication, and repetitive behaviors. From one end of the spectrum, you would have someone who doesn't communicate at all. may engage in rocking behavior, not communicating or having eye gaze of any kind, no reciprocal relationship with their parents or others, up to the other end of the spectrum, which might have someone with a very high IQ with very restricted behavior in a certain area. I remember a child I knew a number of years ago, very young child, about 3 years old, who was very verbal, didn't interact very well socially, but could tell you everything you could ever want to know about a helicopter and how it flies in great detail, to the point of detail of a pilot. And so it sort of gives you an example of someone whose intelligence is at that level, but their ability to function in a social setting was very restricted.
Okay, and in North Carolina, what's the rate of children with autism?
Well, in 2016, the CDC released the latest version of a surveillance study that they've been doing for many years. They update the results every 2 years. And in that study, the prevalence rate for kids in North Carolina was up to 1 in every 59 children. So that's a slight, minuscule decrease from what they had in 2014, which was 1 in 58. And that compares to a national prevalence rate of 1 in 68 kids. So North Carolina has a little bit higher prevalence rate. How that translates out into real numbers across our state, we conservatively estimate that there are over 65,000 families affected. And the Department of Public Instruction, for those kids that are in the public school system, they do an annual survey, and they publish those numbers. And in the most recent survey, they had over 18,300 kids with a diagnosis of autism in the public schools. So we're seeing an increase on an annual basis in schools of about 14 to 17% of kids with autism, and we seem to be holding steady with our prevalence rate. And there's a lot of different thoughts as to why that is, but we'll be getting new numbers next March, and we'll see if it's changed.
Okay, now changing gears a little bit from the actual medical side of it to what the Autism Society of North Carolina does. What is the core mission of the Autism Society of North Carolina?
Well, primarily, we want to provide support and promote opportunities that enhance the lives of individuals who have a diagnosis of autism and their families. And we do that in a variety of different ways. We are a statewide nonprofit, and that means that we're looking out for folks and trying to help them from Murphy to Manteo.
You say Murphy to Manteo. What about rural areas in North Carolina? How is somebody in 4 Oaks, North Carolina? Where do they need to go for help?
One of the things that makes us unique, not only for what we do here in North Carolina, but makes our state unique across the country, is that we've set up a system of being able to have someone who is an expert on the resources that are available in every county of our state. So all 100 counties are covered. So you don't have to be in an urban area to be able to get good information and to get support. We have 19 autism resource specialists, and they divide up the 100 counties to be able to share information with families, to help connect an individual with autism with somebody else who might want social opportunities or might have questions of their own. And those folks are there to talk on the phone. They also will go to school meetings with parents. They provide workshops, both at their offices, or they go out and have that. Sometimes we partner with libraries or other places like that where we can have it at a low cost, but make it accessible to members of the community. And then we also, in addition to our autism resource specialists, we provide services that help keep people in their communities in several places throughout the state. We've got offices in Greenville, We're down in Wilmington. We're also in the Triangle and the Triad as well.
Okay, now say I'm a family member, or I'm a family, and I have an individual who is affected by autism, and I want to reach out to you all. Does any of this cost money? What is? And I know your last question, you said you try to make it low cost, but what can a family do with contacting you? What can they expect?
So when a family contacts us after their child's been diagnosed or whenever they've realized that they need some type of assistance, they're going to connect with an organization that not only employs family members and individuals with autism, so they're going to meet people that understand what they're going through, but also we've been doing what we do in advocating for more opportunities, for creating services, and helping people live with autism for almost 50 years now. So the majority of what we do is information and referral, where somebody might call and say, "I'm having my child's just been diagnosed. What do I do next?" So we help them at that phase of life, and then they might have a kid that's going into school. Well, what do I need to know about schools? So we can help them with that part of their journey, and then whenever they get a little bit older and they're trying to look at what about after school, we're there for that as well. And all of those types of things are free. The information that we provide through our autism resource specialist, the workshops, the online resources, there's no cost to anybody for any of that type of stuff. So we don't want people to feel like cost is a barrier. We're a lifelong partner. We have folks that founded the organization back in 1970 whose kids are now adults, and they're still part of our organization, and we're helping them just like we're helping that family that's getting a diagnosis today. So we want people to take advantage of the knowledge that we have, the information that we've compiled over the decades, and get the help that they need. Now, there are some things that we do that might have a fee involved. We have a summer camp program at a wonderful facility in Chatham County. It's called Camp Royal. But even in that instance, there's scholarship funds available. We've served in the last few years over 350 kids and young adults through that facility. And what we end up doing on an annual basis is giving out about $200,000 in scholarship assistance so that the kids can come enjoy a week of camp. It's an overnight camp. And in addition to the kids being able to experience camp, that gives those families a week of respite where mom and dad can reconnect with each other, or they can spend time focusing on, another kid in the family, or they can just have a good night's sleep. So it gives the kids a chance to be a little bit more independent because they're away from home. It gives the families an opportunity to recharge their batteries. And then whenever everybody comes back together at the end of the week, everybody's feeling refreshed, recharged, and re-energized.
And then there are also portions based on need where our services get more specialized, either through services where someone might be going in home and providing special supports in the home, assisting the family, or it could be clinical services where we're providing behavioral supports or applied behavior analysis supports of an intensive nature to teach and to help people engage their community.
How, if a family wants to contact you, or not contact you, but maybe even learn more, what would they go to? Websites and things of that nature?
Well, the best website address to go to is autismsociety-nc.org, and that's our main website. You can get any amount of information you want off of there. We have an interactive map so that you can click on your county or select it from a drop-down menu, and it'll tell you everything that's available in that county as well as who to reach. So I would highly recommend the website, and again, that address is www.autismsociety-nc.org, or people can pick up the phone and call us toll-free at 800-442-2762, and we will make sure that we get you routed to the correct person or department.